Welcome everyone to this afternoon's webinar. This is a webinar all about professional registration with the Royal Aeronautical Society. So today we aim to give you a good starting point if you haven't started already, or to give you some more advice if you've already started on your application to become a chartered engineer, incorporated engineer, or engineering technician. My name's Emily and I work on the membership and professional standards team. So predominantly it's my role to help people to become either members of the Royal Aeronautical Society and to also help and guide you with your application for professional registration. So at the end of this webinar you will get my details, and if you have any questions or if you need any support going forward, I am the person to come to. So with me today, we've also got Chris Jones, who is our guest speaker. He's the Vice Chair of the Registration Committee. So he is here to cover the competency requirements and the more sort of technical questions that you might have at the end of this webinar. So I'm just going to quickly hand over to Chris just to introduce himself.
So hi there, my name's Chris Jones. I'm a Rolls-Royce engineer. I've been a member of the Royal Aero Society since I graduated in 1990. I became chartered in 1995. I've been mentoring for 20 years, interviewing for 15, and I've been on the registration committee now for about 10 years. Okay.
Perfect, thanks Chris. So as I said, I'm going to be covering the sort of more process requirements, giving you a sort of starting point on professional registration, a little bit about background, and then I'm going to hand over to Chris about halfway through just to cover the competency requirements and the more technical questions that you might have. In the background, working hard to answer all of your questions as well is Rebecca and Stephanie, who also works on the team. So I would like to encourage you to keep asking your questions throughout this presentation. So you should find a question or chat box in your control panel. Keep those questions coming over and they will answer them as we go through the webinar. We'll also try and answer some questions live at the end, so there'll be some that we don't answer throughout because we plan to answer them at the end. And any that we don't get round to, obviously, we will follow up with you afterwards. So don't worry if we haven't got around to answering your questions. We keep a log of everything and we make sure to email you afterwards. So after today's webinar, I will also send you a follow-up email. And that's going to contain everything that we talk about today, so the slides presented, the resources that you might need, but also a recording of this webinar. So if you do want to watch it back for any of the detail or you want to share it with your colleagues, feel free to do so. I'm just going to mention that obviously we are just talking about professional registration today. So we're not talking about membership of the society, although you do have to become a member to become professionally registered with us. So if you're not already a member, or if you're interested in learning more about the membership benefits, I am also running a webinar this Friday. It's 30 minutes long and it is purely just about the membership and the membership benefits. So if you head to aerosociety.com/support, you'll find the registration link there if you're interested in joining me this Friday. So as I said, to make a start, I'm going to be talking about membership. However, I do think it's important to draw your attention to the membership grades. And this is because obviously you do have to join us to become professionally registered, and the membership grades are linked to what level of registration you want to apply for. So obviously what you'll notice on this chart is that we have membership grades here, and you can see on the right hand side we have professional registration post-nominals there as well. So as it indicates, to become an engineering technician you have to be an associate of the society, for example. So I'm just going to quickly run you through this chart. So at the bottom there we have affiliates. We have apprentice and a student affiliates who can join us for free. if you're studying full-time, or a small fee if you're studying part-time. And we also have affiliate membership, which anyone can join us for. It's basically anyone with an interest in aerospace can join us for an instant membership. All of our memberships above this are graded. So this means that they're reviewed by the membership committee. So as I said, to become an EngTech, you need to apply to become an associate grade or above. So the associate grade is based on having a level 3 qualification or above, or you can apply based on your experience. So you might have 3 years of experience in the aerospace industry, at which point you might decide to apply for the associate grade. The associate member grade, this is the minimum grade required for IEng registration, and this is based on having an ordinary degree plus 2 years of experience in the industry, or a total of 12 years experience, with the last few demonstrating positions of responsibility. Then we have, for all of our chartered engineers, you have to apply for member grade or above. And this is based on having an honours degree plus 4 years experience, or a total of 15 years experience in aerospace. And then we start to look at your positions of responsibility again, so around about 7 years within a position of responsibility. And then at the fellow grade, obviously, this grade you can apply for any level of registration. And this is usually awarded to people who've attained a high level position within aerospace, or they might have demonstrated a long career at a high level, or they might have made a significant contribution to the industry. So at this level, as I said, you can apply for CEng, IEng, or EngTech. We do have a guide on our website, so we have a membership handbook which sets out all of the requirements and also pinpoints different careers against the grades. However, if you're not sure after reviewing our documents, you can email a copy of your CV to membership@aerosociety.com. So that's the membership grades. The rest of the webinar is going to be wholly based on professional registration. So to give you an introduction to professional registration. So the Engineering Council are the people who set the standards for all professional engineering institutions to assess someone to become a professionally registered engineer. So that means that we are regulated and we're audited by them, as are all the other PEIs that are licensed by them. So this means that your registration is held by the Engineering Council, and therefore no matter which institution you apply through, it is the same qualification. But you can also be safe in the knowledge that every institution has to adhere to these exact same standards. So you might notice slightly different processes through different institutions, but we all have to adhere to this framework that we use to assess engineers by. This does also mean that you can move institutions and still maintain your registration. So, for example, if your career takes a different turn, if you start off somewhere else and move into aerospace, you might decide to transfer your registration, and the same vice versa. So I think that's really important for you to understand. You're not making a lifelong decision here. You're making a decision that is right for you at the moment, and choosing an institution that basically supports you with your application, but then also with all of the activities that you do. So if you work in aerospace, it just kind of makes sense to be with us because of the kind of activities that we provide. So it's a recognition that your competence has been assessed and that you've attained the required standard onto the National Register at the appropriate level. So we have 3 categories of registration. That's Engineering Technician, or EngTech, Incorporated Engineer, IEng, or Chartered Engineer, CEng. And basically this qualification is achieved by demonstrating absolutely everything that you've done in your career as an engineer. So you demonstrate your underpinning knowledge, your understanding, and your competence and your commitment. So at this stage, before I move on to talk about the rest of professional registration, I'd like to ask Rebecca to launch the next poll, please, which is, what stage are you at with your professional registration application? So this is just interesting for me to know when I'm talking about it, because obviously some of you might not have started, some of you might have started looking at the requirements, or you might still be studying. So it's good for us to understand if you have made a start at looking at the requirements. So it looks like we've got a pretty even split on the call today. So we've got quite a few of you, about 50% of you have actually started looking at the requirements. We've got quite a few of you, about 25% have started your application and you're planning on applying soon. And then we've got a few of you still studying and some of you thinking about it. So that's great. So we can close that poll. Perfect, thank you. But why do it? Why become professionally registered? Well, usually I like to think about the background of professional registration when we talk about this. So we know that the engineering title, the term engineer, is not protected as it is in other countries such as Germany and France. So the Engineering Council basically built this framework and this peer review process, which assesses the competence and the professionalism of practicing engineers. It really came to light at the crash of Nimrod. It's something that we talk about often because of the subsequent Haddon Cave review. It really came to light that there needed to be within the industry a more robust system of checks and balances. So employers began recognising the importance and the benefit of encouraging their employees to become professionally registered. The other thing to mention here is that it's not just a certificate that you take away with you and you put up on your wall and then you forget about it. It's a demonstration of your qualifications, your expertise, your hard work, and also your commitment to the industry. It's also demonstrating that you're going to continue with CPD, so your continuing professional development. So when you become professionally registered, you are signing up to say, I am going to continue with CPD. I'm going to continue to learn and I'm going to continue to demonstrate that. And that really provides assurances for yourself, but then also for everyone that you're working with. You know that if you're working with a professionally registered engineer, they've had to continue to demonstrate that high level of understanding and knowledge and their commitment to the industry. So CPD is something that we sample. It's required by the Engineering Council, and all professional engineering institutions do have to sample their engineers to demonstrate that you are all working on your CPD on a year-by-year basis. The other thing that I've noticed is that it's becoming less of a nice to have and more of an essential qualification in this industry. So a lot of companies are now mandating this, they're writing it into their job specifications, especially in safety critical roles. So it does give them the assurance of the engineer signing off on their projects. Then also in your wider circle, so if you're working in the industry with clients and other people connected to your company, it's also that assurance piece from their point of view as well. But personally, what does it mean for you? Well, first and foremost, it is a huge recognition of your qualifications, your expertise, and your hard work. It offers you these designatory letters after your name, and these are globally recognised. So you've probably noticed engineers that you're working with that have either CEng, IEng, or EngTech after their name. It will increase your credibility with your peers, your employers, your customers and suppliers, as I mentioned before. And it should give you greater influence within the organisation and the industry. And finally, it will improve your career prospects. So, you know, even if you're at the beginning of your career, you can obviously start using these post-nominal letters. You might be working through different levels of registration, or you might be nearing the end of your career, but thinking about what am I going to do next. You might be thinking, why would I have chartered engineer in the last 5 years of my career? Well, in my experience, a lot of engineers that I've worked with don't just retire. You're always an engineer, and there's always loads of projects and loads of ways that you can give back to the industry. So, for example, a lot of our engineers will join the registration committee, as Chris Jones has, or you might become an assessor or a mentor for other engineers. So lots of ways that you can use your professional registration. So as I mentioned, we've got these 3 categories of registration. So just to quickly run through what these are. So engineering technicians, they apply proven techniques and procedures to the solution of practical engineering problems. Now, clearly we see a lot of apprentices come off their apprenticeship scheme, and because of the practical nature of their learning, they are usually ready to apply for engineering technician. Then we have incorporated engineers. They are usually in management level roles, so they are maintaining and managing applications of current and developing technology. They may undertake engineering design, development, manufacture, construction, and operation. And then we have chartered engineers. They develop solutions to engineering problems using new or existing technologies through innovation, creativity, and change. And they may have technical accountability for complex systems. But what does it take? So the Engineering Council have built this framework that we all assess engineers by. And this basically allows us to assess engineers to check that they can embrace change, that they're adaptive and creative, technically sound, commercially aware, that you're committed to your profession and your own personal development, and that you've been through this peer review process. So there's 2 main elements that we look at when you apply. First of all, we look at your underpinning knowledge and understanding, and the second is competence. Understanding as a starting point. So for engineering technicians, as I said, we see a lot of apprenticeships come off their apprenticeship scheme. So we usually say a level 3 qualification or above will give you the underpinning knowledge for engineering technician. Incorporated engineers are set at a bachelor's level of learning. Now, there's a few ways that you can demonstrate this. You might have an accredited bachelor's or honours degree in engineering or technology, and that would be an approved qualification. So that means that we tick that off and you are then reviewed by the registration committee. But just because you don't have a bachelor's degree, it doesn't mean that you're not working to that level. So you might be demonstrating that level of underpinning knowledge and understanding through other degrees, through, for example, HNC or HND, or through experiential learning. And you can absolutely demonstrate that. It's basically is your job to put that into the application to demonstrate that level of knowledge. But we will accept applications from all sorts of different backgrounds. And then chartered engineers, again, a similar deal. You might have an accredited bachelor's degree and you might have an accredited master's or MSc, or you might have an integrated MEng degree, which is accredited. And again, that is an approved qualification and will go straight through to the registration committee. Or alternatively, you might have other qualifications that meet the similar level of learning or experiential learning. So if this is the case, then again, you can still apply to become professionally registered. If you're not sure whether your qualification or your experience meets the requirements for a level of registration, and you're not planning on applying for professional registration for a little bit of time, but you want that assurance, you can apply for a qualification assessment. So this is basically reviewed by the individual assessment panel, who are a group of academic reviewers, and they will provide you with feedback, which will either be, yes, we think you're ready to apply for this level, or these are the areas that we think you could strengthen in, or you can go away and rewrite. If you're interested in this process, you can apply for this through registration@raessociety.com. Just pop an email over and we will send you the application form and the process to do this. Finally, if you're not sure if your degree was accredited, you can check on the Engineering Council's website. So they have a recognised qualification search. You just need to put your course details in there and it will come up with a list of courses. Now, if your course appears on there and you're within the intake years that are listed, if it's with another institution that has accredited the course, we will accept it. So it doesn't matter which institution has accredited your degree, we'll accept it if it's listed on the Engineering Council's website. It's worth bearing that in mind. So if you're a little bit off applying for professional registration, if you still have a little bit of time building up your competencies, but you feel that you've met the academic standards for incorporated engineer or chartered engineers, you can apply for interim registration. So this is a really useful tool in demonstrating that not only have you met the underpinning knowledge requirements, but also you're dedicated to working towards that full CEng or IEng level. You can apply for that through the society. You do have to hold at least associate grade membership with us, but obviously very simple application. You just need to send your accredited degree certificates over to us and we can set that up for you. So now moves on to the second part of the application, which is the competency framework. And I'm going to hand over to Chris to talk you through competencies and also give you some examples of how you might want to write your qualifying report form. So over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Emily. So the competence framework is defined by the Engineering Council. So although you've got this plethora of institutes out there to choose from to be a member of, the actual engineering element to registration is controlled by the Engineering Council. So no matter who you apply through, you have to satisfy these 5 competencies, which are the underpinning knowledge and understanding, the application to practice, leadership, management and supervision, your interpersonal skills and your commitment to professional standards. Now, those who are civilian engineers or in working for OEMs or down in the supply chain, who are practicing engineers, tend to do quite well with competencies A and B, and competence C can be a weak area, because competency is all about managing projects, about managing people, about managing budgets and continuous improvement. For those who are applying through the military route or have military backgrounds, where they're more used to command structures, where they hold a position of responsibility within one of those command structures, they usually find competency fairly easy. But certainly with the commissioned officers who are actually looking to apply their knowledge, that's where they struggle sometimes. So it's quite interesting as a committee member to see these applications as they come in, because you can see these patterns emerging. And one of the things I will stress now is that the person who signs your form off, your referee, and if you have a mentor, they are absolutely crucial to being able for getting you to complete that form in a coherent manner that meets these requirements and the competencies. And if you get a referee who just says, well, give me your form, I'll sign it, I don't need to read it, then you need to take it back to them and you really need to get them to read it, because they are certifying that what you have written is true and an accurate reflection of you. Okay, then next one. So what we'll do now is we'll just talk through some of these competencies by stream. So you can see here we've got the first column of engineering technician, we have the incorporated engineer, and then we have the chartered engineer. Now obviously, depending on which work stream you think you're going to go down, you select the right one, but it also gives you an overview. Maybe if you're not sure if you feel you're an engineering technician type of person, or whether you could be an incorporated engineer. These charts give you just that little comparison for you to be able to check against, and likewise the incorporated engineer and chartered engineer. It's not a ranking system, so you are recognized as a registered engineer regardless of which one of those streams you sit in. There is scope for progression between those levels, but as I say, it's not a rank. And if you are a good incorporated engineer and that is your role and that is what you do, you don't need to worry about trying to progress from incorporated engineer to chartered engineer, because you are recognized for what you do at incorporated engineer level. So competence A reflects the differences. So engineering technicians shall use engineering knowledge and understanding to apply technical and practical skills. Your incorporated engineers shall use a combination of general and specialist knowledge and understanding to apply existing and emerging technology. And chartered engineers shall use a combination of general and specialist engineering knowledge and understanding to optimize the application of advanced and complex systems. So hopefully you can see that these are three distinct levels of work and of levels of responsibility and of what you do. Below there, it gives you some ideas of what you need to do. Now, these are, as I said, written by the Engineering Council. And the points raised here are the points that you need to answer when you complete your form. Engineering technician applicants only have to complete the form. So you need to make sure that you put down enough information in that application such that the committee members, when they read it, actually have no doubt about what you do because they can read it. It's slightly different for the incorporated engineers and chartered engineers in so much that there is an interview to follow. But again, be clear, concise, and you're getting the hints here. So if we pick incorporated engineer, the applicant shall demonstrate that they have maintained and extended a sound theoretical approach to the application of technology in engineering practice. So the question is, how have you done that? Maybe you've taken an aircraft familiarization course. Maybe you've spent a week at the Institute of Welding learning about new techniques. These are the kind of things we expect to see. Okay, competence B. So for EngTech, design, development, and solving engineering problems. Incorporated engineer, design, development, and solving engineering problems. So very similar. you can spot the difference down below that. Your incorporated engineer will be doing more than just applying practical problem solving, okay? Your chartered engineer, well, they're going to apply appropriate theoretical and practical methods to the analysis and solution of engineering problems. So the way I think about this is your engineering technician can contribute to design and the development and the manufacture and maintenance of systems. But essentially what they will do is take an instruction and follow that instruction. They may offer up ideas about how that instruction could be improved, but they will go off and organize themselves, possibly a small team, and go in and complete that job. Whereas an incorporated engineer will look at the methods around them and they'll start thinking about actually what methods do we need to deploy here. And then they possibly generate a job card, which then gets flowed down to your engineering technician. But at the same time, they could be looking at new ideas through the work that they've been doing, for example, welding. The incorporated engineer may spot a trend amongst concessions that requires new welding equipment. And it's perfectly within that realm of responsibility for them to go off and find what that new welding equipment could be and then bring it back into the business. Engineer the solution. At the other end, you've got your chartered engineer. Now, the chartered engineer in this welding scenario would be the person that comes up with this new idea for how a welding torch might work or how the inert gas system might work. Designs it, develops it, brings it to industrialization, takes it almost from cradle to grave. Maybe there's a patent involved. So they're the ones that will be thinking about how this system can work, how to develop it, which then can flow down to your engineering technician via your incorporated engineer, who will take the chartered engineer's ideas, turn them into a work instruction, which in turn flows down to your engineering technician, who can then implement that solution. And C, please. So as I mentioned, competency can be the competence which engineers struggle with, particularly civilian engineers. It is all about managing people, it is about managing budgets, it's about accepting responsibility. So for an engineering technician, shall accept and exercise personal responsibility. Be a stamp holder, self-certify your job, work on your own, be able to work with others. Your incorporated engineer provides technical and commercial management. So this is where we start to see managing plans, controlling small budgets, continuous improvement. Your chartered engineer will be providing technical and commercial leadership. So if you look at the three terms under each heading, so engineering technician, responsibility, personal responsibility. Incorporated engineer, technical and commercial management. And your chartered engineer, technical and commercial leadership. So your chartered engineer will be leading projects. They will be coming up with the ideas for how that project might look. They'll be leading teams. They will manage, organize, direct, control, pretty much same words as used for the incorporated engineers. But the big difference is leading teams, not the management team, but leading teams or technical specialists. They bring about continuous improvement. Whereas your incorporated engineer, you can say that takes an active role in continuous improvement. So, as we said, for chartered engineer, it is about leadership. For incorporated engineer, it's about management of tasks. And for engineering technician, it's about taking the personal responsibility for discharging your task. And D, please. Now, D is really about communication. Can you effectively communicate with a colleague, a customer? Can you bring together written statements? Can you give people oral instructions? Can you give presentations? So at an engineering technician level, you'll be an effective communicator and you'll be able to use your interpersonal skills. Incorporated engineers, it's the demonstration of effective communication and interpersonal skills. At each of these levels, we expect you to be able to communicate clearly in the English language. And we expect you to be able to deliver concise, clear instructions. And you're possibly going to be doing that in the way of writing reports, writing job instructions, or giving presentations. And you get a very similar definition for the chartered engineer as well. But this is all about, when you come to fill your form in, one of the things I usually consider is if you cannot stick to a word count, or if you cannot answer the questions posed in competencies A, B, or C, by the time to get to D, you've actually told me that you cannot communicate effectively. If you fill your form full of acronyms, which you've failed to explain, or if you have over-explained something, like, for example, concessions, and yet fail to demonstrate adequately what your part in that particular task was, then you're failing to communicate. So you should consider yourself failing against D. And competency, please. So this is about your personal and professional commitment to the industry. EngTechs demonstrate a personal commitment to an appropriate code of professional conduct, recognizing obligations to society, the profession, and the environment. Incorporated, again, very similar. And again, with your chartered engineers. This is all about behaving in an ethical manner. It is about working to your employer's code of conduct, the Engineering Council's code of conduct. If you are subject to government restrictions, for example, you've signed the Official Secrets Act, then you have to comply with. It is about sustainability. And when we talk about sustainability, we talk about sustainability of engineering. We talk about the sustainability of engineering solutions. We're all committed to our continuing professional development. That can be going to lectures. It could be listening to an article on a radio. It could be reading a technical manual. But we all commit to do it. It's also about safe systems of work. Everybody has a responsibility under the Health and Safety Act to behave in a safe manner, not only for yourselves, but for those around you. And again, we ask you to show how you've demonstrated this. Okay, and next. One of the scariest things you can do when applying for registration is to actually open the form up. I find, because you're faced by a blank sheet of paper or a blank screen, and it has these empty boxes on there. And we're asking you to put down your experiences and to demonstrate your competencies against each of these standards. Now, as we said before, these are as laid down by the Engineering Council. So if you went to the Engineering Council website, you would see competence A1. You would see the definition exactly the same as you can see on the screen here. And underneath that definition are some hints about how you could actually construct your answers. So if we look at A1, maintain and extend a sound theoretical approach in enabling the introduction and exploitation of new and advancing technology. This could include an ability to identify the limits of own personal knowledge and skills. We talked about going on a welding course for a week at TWI. We talked about doing an aircraft familiarization course. Your clues are on that left-hand side. Strive to extend own technological capability. I did my welding course and then I went off and applied it. Broaden and deepen own knowledge base through research and experimentation. I took an idea, I applied it, I got results. And each of these competencies that you will see, A1, A2, B1, B2, B3, C1, 2, 3, and 4, they all have the descriptor of the competence that you have to demonstrate, and they have the clues underneath about the kind of things that you could draw out. So nobody's looking to trip you up, nobody's looking to catch you out. Your answers to your questions largely are on the page. You just have to fit your experience around the hints. Next, please. So we are currently transitioning between what is called UK-SPEC 3rd edition and UK-SPEC 4th edition. These are the standards prepared by the Engineering Council, and they reflect the competencies that you have to satisfy. So I've given you a link there to UK-SPEC 4. I've then given you underneath there the page numbers which relate directly to that level of registration. And if you go to that booklet, that PDF, you will find by competence everything laid out with a description of the competence and the kind of ways that you could answer that question. I find that booklet extremely useful when I deal with my mentees, and that's one of the first things I give them to go away and read. So if you've not read it, or you've read UK-SPEC 3, go and read UK-SPEC 4. And again, we talked about the comparison between levels of registration. You will also find that in this guide on page 7. Read it, make the judgment about which level you feel you fit in. You could actually look at it and say, well, actually, I don't fit into engineering technician. I think I fit in incorporated engineer. But I think maybe with another 2 years worth of development, I might be chartered engineer. And you can make the call as to whether or not you apply for incorporated engineer now, or whether you say, well, actually, I'll wait the 2 years, as I've discussed with my mentor, and I will apply for chartered engineer. Those of you who are fresh out of university, you're probably looking at a 4 or 5 year journey to incorporated or chartered engineer. Those of you who are looking at engineering technicians, maybe you've just come out of an apprenticeship, in which case you might think, well, actually, I need some more time just to fill this in. But actually, I really want to be a planning engineer, or I want to be a design engineer. So I actually have a higher aspiration. There is nothing to stop you applying for one level and progressing to the next level if you wish to. But as I said at the beginning, this is not a rank. You are recognized as being a registered engineer, no matter which one of these streams you sit under. And the next. Okay, so this just reinforces those 5 competence areas. And the next. Now, when we start thinking about filling in the forms, I mentioned I like to see clear, concise language. But this form is about you. It's not about me. It's not about the team that you work in. It's not about your best mate who you sit next to. It's not about the bloke that holds your toolbox. It is about you. So when you fill in this form, you have to write it in the first person. So for example, I led a team. I investigated a problem. I identified a solution. Remember, this is about you. We also need you to be explicit about your role in the tasks that you are describing. So, I led a team to develop a new solution. I was responsible for the planning of the task. That is clear. There's no ambiguity. Ambiguous things such as my team developed a solution for additive layer manufacture. Sounds really quite good, but you've not told me what you have done. If you tell me that you led a team to develop a solution using additive layer manufacture, I know exactly what you're claiming to have done. This is all about you and nobody else. I'd also say one of the things I'd really like to see, and as a committee we like to see, is quantifying the size of a task or solution. For example, I developed a new method for analysing bolt strength. The existing method required 8 hours of computational time. With the new method, this was reduced to 2 minutes. You've described it, what you did. You have described the task. You have described the benefits. And you've quantified the size of your task. If you stick to those 3 or 4 principles in answering each one of your competencies, there should be no problem with you completing this form. Give you a second example there. By applying 5 S principles, it was possible to reorganize the stores area, releasing 10 square meters of floor space and reducing waiting times for tools to be found by up to 20 minutes. But what it doesn't say is I led a team that applied 5S principles. And that's what we're looking for. All the way through this, the use of the first person. We need you to be explicit about what you've done. And if you can quantify the size of the task or the benefits that that brings, then that is a model answer. And the next, please. We have now introduced a word count restriction per subcompetence. We've done that because too many people were writing too much in there. They were not being concise. They were failing to be clear. And what we found was when you've got 30, 40, 50 applications to go through in a month, it's just too much. And to be able to extract that information out as an interviewer to give you the best chance at interview, there's just too much in there to cut through. So we've cut it down and it's now 400 words. Now, if you can't describe your task and your responsibility and what you've done in 400 words, I challenge you to think about how you satisfy competence D. The people reviewing these applications are experienced industry people. We don't need you to explain what a concession is. We don't need you to explain what a product definition is. What we do need you to do is identify what you did within that task to deliver the benefits that you are claiming. I'd suggest that you don't inflate your contribution. When you get to interview for IEng and CEng, your interviewers will have your packs in front of them and they will have picked out things to talk to you about. Things that either interest them or things that they may think don't sound quite right sometimes, or just to give you an opportunity to show what a good engineer you are. And if you've inflated your role within that, then that starts casting doubt on your competence. You do need to answer each competence as fully as possible. You have the opportunity to give 4 examples for each of those sub-competencies. Some of you may think you are so good and that you've reached a really high level in your organization that you don't need to fill this in. Well, that's an incorrect assumption. Likewise, you may be struggling to get your competence information into these boxes. You may only have 2 examples. Well, registered engineers need to show breadth of experience. It's no good being just really good at one thing. You've seen the 5 competencies you have to satisfy. Within those 5 competencies, the sub-competencies, where we're asking for 4 examples of each. I would encourage you all to fill those 4 boxes and to fill them with meaningful tasks and demonstrations of competence. You'll probably have some really strong ones, and you may have one that's not quite as strong as the others. But to give you the best chance of getting through this process, provide the evidence. Mentors and referees. Now, hopefully you've all got either a mentor or a referee that can guide you through this process. As we move to UK-SPEC 4, just ask your mentor or referee if they are aware that we are no longer at UK-SPEC 3, and make sure that they understand that when they press that button on the electronic message that they get saying, do you agree with everything that's been submitted, that they understand that. Just pushing the button is not enough. They need to have read your application. They need to make sure that you actually have done what you've said you've done, and that you meet that competence requirement. If there is any doubt about the way you have written your response, if you failed to supply enough information, if you've written something in a dubious way, where you've not been able to identify what your contribution is, your qualifying report form is likely to be returned to you asking for clarification. So your first quality gate you go through is with your mentor or referee. Now, people ask for exemplars, and below we've listed the addresses on the Society's website where you can go to read some of those exemplars. I find one of the best ways of getting exemplars and looking at alternative experiences is to talk to people who have been through the process recently. They can give you hints and tips on how to fill that form in. They may even lend you their form, but obviously don't plagiarize it. It's there as a guide. We are interested in you as people and your contributions as engineers. Okay. If you have started filling in your form, ready for submission, and you are using the competencies as defined by UK-SPEC 3rd edition, that's fine. However, the closing date for that for submission is the 7th of September. If you try and submit a form completed to the 3rd edition standard after the 7th of September, it will be rejected and you will be asked to complete the form for UK-SPEC 4. Okay.
Thank you, Chris. So I think that concludes your session. So I'm going to take over for the process part. I am aware that we've reached 3 o'clock now, so we did advertise this as an hour webinar, but it will take around about 5 to 10 minutes just to sum up and maybe ask some questions at the end. So we'd love you to stay if you can. If you can't, we are sending out a recording of the webinar, so obviously you will still get the end of this if you want to listen to it back. But we will continue for another 5 to 10 minutes. So just to cover the documents that are required when you apply online, the one that we've covered in detail today is the qualifying report form, and that's because that's the bulk of your work that you need to do to apply for registration. So the QRF is your first document that you need to pull together. The second thing that is required is a technical task. So we're looking for a 2-page account of a technical task, and this should demonstrate both your technical and your managerial responsibility. Next, we're looking for a development action plan. So these are basically your continuing professional development, your plans for this in the short term, medium and long term. I'd recommend that you write this into your Word document and then copy and paste this over into the application form online. We also require a CV, so your CV should be an up-to-date and comprehensive CV which covers your responsibilities within your roles and also any relevant training courses. At the moment, the online application does also require you to supply us with an organisational chart. Now, this may change throughout the year, but at the moment, if you have access to an org chart, we would like you to submit that. So this is just demonstrating where you sit within your company, so who you report into, and if you have any direct reports. And then finally, we need details of your qualifications. So your qualifications, if they're accredited, you can just supply us with your certificates. However, non-accredited qualifications, we will also need transcripts. So if you have access to your transcripts, you can upload these straight away onto your online application. The final part of the online process is to provide us with a referee. Now, Chris has covered this in detail. So we are looking for someone to act as your mentor throughout the process, to have good knowledge of what's in your application, and then ultimately act as your referee at the end of the process. So you'll need their details. So you'll need details such as their name, their job title, the company they work for, email address, and how long you've known them for, which allows us to contact them, provide a copy of your application and ask them to endorse it. So all applications are made via our website at raesociety.com. So I'm just going to quickly switch over to the website. When I did this last week, we did lose a bit of sound, so we'll play this one by ear. For all of the resources that we've mentioned today,
Hi,
they
Emily.
are...
Yes, we seem to have lost your audio again.
Give up on that. Can you hear me, Rebecca?
Yes, we can hear you now. Yes.
Okay, right. We're going to give up on the website. It seems that living in the depths of Kent, I don't get the internet that I should do. So basically, all applications are on raesociety.com. We will send you links to all of the resources that we've spoken about today. So I'll show you where to find those on the website in the follow-up email. And then basically, if you haven't done so already, on the top right-hand side of the website, there is a login or apply now button, and that's where you can either create an account or you can log into your profile there. From your profile, just select My Memberships and then apply now to start an application. If you're not already a member, you do need to start a membership application before you start professional registration. And when you select professional registration, it will ask you for the category, so either CEng, IEng or EngTech, and the route that you're applying through. So if you have an accredited degree, you're applying through the standard route. If you don't, then basically you're applying through the individual route. When you apply, you can apply for membership and registration at the same time. So we do have closing dates throughout the year, which I'll put on the screen on the next slide. Or you can apply for membership first and then apply for registration at a later date. So when you submit your application, we then sort through them and we decide which ones need to be reviewed by the individual assessment panel. So these are basically any that don't have an accredited degree, go to the IAP. And then the next stage is to be reviewed by the registration committee. And if they're happy, you get approved at the registration committee, you're then invited for an interview. And this is for IEng or CEngers. For the EngTechs on the call, you're usually approved at the registration committee, and that is the end of the process. So the professional review interview is an hour long. We're currently conducting most of these online. So basically the face-to-face ones haven't been happening since the pandemic, but we do hope that there will be a mixture of face-to-face and online in the future. But at the moment they're conducted on GoToMeeting. They're exactly the same as they would have been. It'll be cameras on and an hour long based on your qualifying report form. So you have two interviewers who will usually work through the competencies from A to E in a fairly structured way, asking you questions and asking you to expand on the examples that you've given. So just to finish up before we have a look at some of the questions, as we mentioned, there's short links to our website, areasociety.com/CEng, IEng or EngTech. At the bottom of these pages are basically all the downloads that you need. So if you don't want to wait for the follow-up email, you can go straight to these pages and download everything. I'd recommend that you locate a mentor if you haven't done so already. Obviously, your mentor will ultimately act as your referee. So really good idea to get on top of that and make sure that you have a mentor in place. If you work for the Royal Navy, the RAF, military, or you're an MOD civilian, we do also have some application routes for you. Get in touch with us at membership@RAeS and we can talk you through the application routes. I'd also recommend doing some preparation for the interview. So if you submit your application, you've got a little bit of time between submitting and the registration committee actually approving your application. So the way that you can start preparing is basically knowing your qualifying report form inside and out, having a think about how you would expand on those examples. So you know you will have sparked the interest within the qualifying report form, but then how are you going to talk the interviewers through that? Finally, closing dates. It is a really good idea if you're working on an application to have one of these closing dates as a goal for you to apply for. If you miss one, obviously it can be quite frustrating because we only have 6 throughout the year, so it can delay your application by 2 or 3 months if you don't apply for one of these. As we said, if you're working on the UK-SPEC 3rd edition, you can apply up to the 7th of September closing date using that framework. Finally, if you do need some further support, we do offer Teams meetings. You can have a one-to-one with me. Sometimes we invite an assessor along to talk to you about your competencies. Or you want to join another webinar, so we have the membership webinar coming up on Friday. You'll find all of the details at areasociety.com/support. So these are our contact details. Any questions at all, just send them on to membership@areasociety.com, or my phone number is 0207 670 4384. So thank you very much for sticking around for a little bit longer to listen to the end of this webinar. I can still see there's lots of you online. If there's any further questions that you want to send over, I can see that a lot of them have been answered throughout the webinar. If there's any questions that you want an answer to, just pop them over now. I'm sure we can stick around for another 2 or 3 minutes just to answer any others. Ones that I have seen come in that might be of interest. I think one of the first ones in was talking about the fact that we were using My Career Path before now, and we are actually moving over to a new CPD recording tool, and that's called Aeroversity. So for those of you who are mapping their initial professional development or their continuing professional development, you might be interested in RAeS. There are more details on our website. If you're an active member, then you can start using this tool straight away to start recording your competencies. So I'm just having a quick look through the questions. I think either Stephanie or Rebecca could probably confirm with me if there's any that haven't been answered that we could ask now. We've got a couple of flags here, so this might be a good one for you, Chris. So how does the mentor referee confirm you've done what you're claiming if claims cover multiple roles within multiple businesses? And I think we've had a couple of questions around this area, so this will be a useful one for us.
So that's quite interesting. Some of it will have to be based on you as an individual and your integrity. If you've just moved around within a single business, let's say BAE Systems for sake of argument, then your mentor or referee should have access to the people that you've worked with or worked for on either your grad scheme or in your position of responsibility. I would expect, though, your mentors would have been seeing you probably every 6 to 8 weeks in the early days and maybe out to 3 months in towards the end of the process. So they would have been reviewing your reports that you've been generating at the end of each placement. My mentees, they generate reports as they complete an assignment or a placement. So every 2 to 3 months, I see something from them. We sit down and we discuss it. Now, obviously, if you change businesses or change employers, that can be more difficult. But what you should have with you when you move employment is you should have a logbook of sorts, whether that is something you've collected on RAeS, or if you're old-fashioned like me, maybe you've got a file where month by month you've got a record of what you've done. What I do for my mentees is I sign each of their reports to say that I've seen it and I agree that the content is there. So if you do change employers, it's a good idea to get your previous mentor to sign that logbook off. So when you start in your new employment, you can show them what you've done, assuming you can show them what you've done, bearing in mind confidentiality and security classifications. And then that mentor can then pick up where you left off. So.
Cool, thank you, Chris. So one that I can answer easily. So does the mentor or referee require to be a registered engineer? The quick answer is yes. So your referee should be professionally registered at the level or above that you're applying for. So if you're applying for CEng, you do need a chartered engineer. However, they don't necessarily need to be chartered with the Royal Aeronautical Society. If you do know a CEng that's willing to act as your mentor and your referee who is with another institution, we will also accept that. So one for you, Chris, what should the development action plan include?
So for the actual report form itself, it's broken down into 3 chunks. So your short term, so what are your actions short term? A lot of people put down in that short term box they want to be reaching incorporated, chartered or EngTech level. Maybe that you want to be a team leader, maybe the fact that you want to improve your competence in that area. In the midterm, sort of 5 to 10 years, where do you want to be in that 5 to 10 years? Maybe you want, if you've not got a postgraduate degree, maybe you want to go off and get a postgraduate degree. Maybe you want to reach a mid-management level. And just think about it. It's a good way of trying to plan your career on a page in 3 simple steps, sort of 0 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, and 10 years plus. That's
Perfect.
best.
Thanks, Chris. We've got another question. So how recent do the competency examples need to be?
Say again, sorry.
How recent do the competence examples need to be?
So depending on where you are in your career. So if you are, let's say, in the first 5 to 10 years of your career, then pretty much all of that period of time is fine. If you're a 30-year professional and you're drawing on stuff you did in 1990, that's not looked on so well. So you're looking for the more recent sort of 5 to 10 years worth of experience in that case. But for when you talk about specifically graduates that have come through maybe a grad scheme, maybe they've got 2 to 3 years in a position of responsibility, pretty much anything in that band is fine.
Perfect. Thanks, Chris. So I know time is kicking on, but we're still getting quite a few more questions in. So we'll try and cover a couple more quickly. So we've had one question. This is quite interesting from a sort of mentor's perspective. So my mentor is adamant that I don't apply for IEng and I wait it out until I'm ready for CEng. He says if I apply for IEng first, it won't look good. Do you agree?
No.
Well, I know I've got my opinions on this, but Chris, I'll let you answer.
I'd say no. I think the thing you need to bear in mind is if you have got the educational background and are working towards that CEng and you think you will get there within your 4 to 5 years, by all means, wait. If you get to an incorporated engineer level of learning with the experiences that go with that, and then you think you're going to be operating at that level for a period of time, let's say another 2 years, then why not? It doesn't go against you in any way. But if there is a step then between, if you get your incorporated engineer, you've got to be very definite then in the next period about the work that you have done differentiates between what you did as an incorporated engineer and what you do as a chartered engineer. The other thing I would say is if you are a new graduate coming into a business looking to get to CEng, it's not a race. You don't have to get there in 4 to 5 years. If it takes you 6 or 7, that's fine. What's the problem there? And maybe in that kind of case, an incorporated engineer level is right for you. How's that?
Cool, thank you. I'll quickly answer this one. Does the mentor have to be current CEng, or is past registration also fine? And a current fellow of another society? They do need to be current. So we're looking for someone who has a current professional registration. As I said, it can be with any institution, but they do need to maintain that CEng registration.
As a referee?
Yes, yeah.
So you could have a mentor that's retired or where their registration has lapsed, but they can't be your referee. There's a subtle difference.
Yeah, perfect. I think we've covered a fair few of the questions between Stephanie and Rebecca replying back to everyone in writing and a few at the end here. But what I will say is that any that we haven't answered today, either live or in writing, we will give you an email. And if you don't hear from us, then obviously you can email membership@raessociety.com. In the follow-up documents, I have also put together a question and answer sheet, which is basically commonly asked questions throughout all of these webinars. So hopefully that should also answer a few of your questions. As we are well over, we're 23 minutes over, I am going to end the webinar now, but I do want to say a big thank you to everyone that stuck around to listen to the questions at the end. And mostly a huge thank you to Chris, who has been really helpful and informative today. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
And thank you. I'll close the webinar. Thank you for joining us. And as always, if you have any questions or if you need support going forward, come straight to us. Come to membership@raessociety.com and we will answer any questions that you have. Okay, thank you everyone and have a nice day.